Death cycles, location setting, the process area indicates lines of grounds. The core track centers, converted setting, timeline centers, kick drive to high drive, centralize your settings to our first lines of travel. This helps us living in the cycles of foundations of our 12D. How we go through the story frame is how we implicate the calculation ground centers sequence. We plan the two locations to its our first lines of travel. People are going to get out of the fantasies, not realizing into reality what it is. It's always been in the foundation itself. So, there's so many ways of looking at this, but there's only one side inside. But the inside's going to be the outside living in the inside, position of projection. And this is where we have to really be cautious of what we do with our word phrasing, or phrasing our words, or how we frame this, or how we frame that, correlating from this, converting to that, angle on this, angle on that. All you're bringing in, okay, is you in operation. But how you bring yourself in is just a story, going through a story, not connecting to a story, going through a story. I want to make that very well clear. So when the operatives and teams and units and the activators start to recognize these things, they understand their platforms and how they come into position location of balance, their checks, their balances, and their savings and set lines of travel. So I'm just trying to get you guys how this modifies your systems, how you see travel location setting, position operation lines of calculation. All right, so the 12 foundations has always been new, and it's a reality that we have to really come in and convert the setting of balance, knowing how to come in that position. So we're going to convert this in position to brain itself. Okay. Okay, split the lines of anomaly as a travel. Okay. 1, 2, and 3. Triangulation, box, circle, star. Okay? Okay? Then we position lines of setting, convert to set the AI machine, which is center operation of your systems, back to machine operation of 12 foundation lines, converts and set lines of projection itself, which is 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, 0, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. All right? That's where we're all coming into. Now that's the balance you have to convert this setting. It has 3 lines of flux and 7 lines of route, so to travel. So understanding the core center is the center operation sequence, which is a flower of time. Comes in the tulips, propellers, motors, rotation lines of circulation of its rotation system, and clocking screen location. Process lines embedding, operation lines, set lines of calculation. Comes in positions of 144 flux. Adaptations and crown centers and position on client set and operation lines of travel. Everything you're bringing in, it's not going to be a game itself, but it's going to be a lot more easy to identify that in a central setting and clocking screen. Okay, through a crop circle, how you see it in modification. But coming back to yourself, it's just the eyes itself. So when you bring your observation in, I'll get to that in position information setting. That's you in programming. You in AI operation, you in programming, you in position of the body frame, how you bring the mind operation to its setting to its individual system is also nothing but a program that you're bringing in. That's all you're doing. But you are not a program. You're just seeing everything from the eyes itself. The process how we use the windows and the frames of our communication setting to convert the system all through travel. All right? So everything I'm bringing in is just a game. But playing the game is knowing the game you already played. So you can leave off, we left off in your consciousness and you won't remember a thing. So when did that just happen? 5 minutes ago. When is it happening now? 5 minutes from now. When's that going to be happening? 5 minutes after, 555. So that's everybody in balance of set position. So operationalize the screens, adaptation of processing, flux over settings, 0, 1, 2, 3, set 1, 2, 3. So that's it. Right, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so the body has to reconvene its settings back to its center. Operates the set lines of sequence, set position lines of 5 over travel, set position of 5 lines of set calculations, and 5 convergent system and center of operation. Okay, which is the umbrella, ether and its core, its firmaments. Umbrellas and spring lines, adaptation of flux and travel communication. Ether, firmament, and core are retract core centers. It's nothing but a story. Everything's a story, nothing but a story. But you're not a story. You're the foundations of the story you're bringing in. Okay, so I want to make that very well clear. So it's adapting the mind, imagination, Okay, so let's bring in a triangulation box and simulation. Okay, you and observation. Okay, but you're not there. You're just bringing the observation of you and 3 centers of travel. Okay, it's that calculation. That's all it is, right? You are just the eyes that sees everything. You are the eyes and windows of everything that you see in direction and location of the soul itself, right? But that's what you're bringing in. Platforms of the game itself, the set lines of travel. Okay? So I don't want anybody to get confused that not only. Because you're not going to like waking up with reality. And I'm going to be honest with you, because you're not used to it. Until you identify the position that you're in the body line, it's just a fragmentation line that has no implications of you in travel. You start to see that body itself is just nothing but an image that you create in your mind, that you don't understand through construct, because you cannot self-tell the operation and readjusting you through a story. Okay, so it's much easier to modify yourself in foundations. So you get to leave off where you left off in your game. 5-minute game, not 5-hour. Set lines of converters and set in anything operation line segments, position on all this, taking out of 50-hour frames. Okay, that's 50,000 line frame seconds. Process position of 5 centers of travel, 5 direct line course centers, and position of 5 fine line positional levels, and umbrella line set line calculation and calculation. So in that position line setting out of the 5-minute game, when did that just happen? Just now, time frame. 5 centers, when's that going to happen? 5 minutes ago. Process past, present, and future. Implicates course centers, separates as in position, up line centers, down screen adaptation, cross lines, cross line angles, embedded over lines, 144 flux over travel. Okay, so you're all going to come back to your 12 foundation yourselves right away. Because everything you created is just a fantasy. Fantasy becomes a foundation to its atmospheres, to its network, of its travels, of its awakening, of its systematical of you. Fantasy. So in that foundation grounds, December 25th will be 0. December dissemination settings, process lines, calculation grounds, centers, calculation / triangulation box. Back to 12 foundations, a flux, 12 locations, 12 current settings, and destination. Calculate and modify, 3 centers of calculation, 4 centers of travel, 5, 6, 7 line connection setting, converts operation lines of travel. Converts embedding over lines, 42 locations in calculation grounds, marked by touch region. Back and balance, no more separated in the mind. Okay? So I'm just trying to get you guys how this is going to be set up in your systems. So you can really understand the correlations of the holographic streaming, the one that you come in right position location, your body no longer be there, the metaphysical system. So there's not going to be anything of observation. There's not going to be anything of story. There's not going to be anything of frame. You're just going to be in the mind itself, seen through the eyes. There's not going to be any body. It's going to be a metaphysical setting. So you're going to be 100% transition of time frame. How you correlate the seconds, minutes, and hours in body frame. Body frame. Soul frame. Calculation ground centers, mind position location and cycle. High generator assigns a time frame into the heart. Time set and sequence, body frame course center, systematic lines of change, measured legs, line centers, course center, calculated set position on person line sequence, in position location with soul line, direct lines of grounds, into solar sail, calculate modified infusion, cold infusion, hot infusion line, or operation lines, calculation barometers, thermometers, and thermometer readings, line connection setting, barometer location, convergence system, operation lines of travel. Okay, 100% of transition over lines of pi. So this is going to help you not just identify yourself, but how to live the foundations of you, which is nothing but a story. Now getting out of the story, you come through stories. So you're not self-telling the operation of you or readjusting yourself because you understand the foundation of you. Okay, so that process your settings and position locations coming into the books, which Zero gives you, into the memory of foundations. Understand how to see yourself, what you're perceiving through consciousness, how to get into its perspective. Perspective is everything because you become the truth and the point of view of everything, right? So you process in light condition setting, you guys get out of confusion, you get out of alignment, you come back to yourself and foundations, you start to come more of the common system of the mind, but you're just going to be the eyes. That's the crazy part. The transition, the metaphysical system. So your body's not going to be there in real time. You're just going to see through the eyes. When you close them or open them up, it doesn't matter. Either way, your body's not going to be there. But what's going to be there is what you bring into the game. That's going to be there in real time. So it's going to be very confusing to an anomaly until you let everything go that you're already in process through. This helps you identify your system because you understand how to see it through a game modulation setting and view through operation. That helps you to get in position location how this all works. In the triangulation box and triangulation flux that has position. So everything you bring in is nothing of a story that you go through. So you understand the alteration of the egos and know exactly how to bring in the game that you want to bring in. Right? But you're just the eyes, seeing everything. You're the eyes, the windows of everything you see. Now it's much easier to come in that transition. You really understand how to modify that and you understand that, oh my gosh, I'm not here. I'm just imagination bringing things in through the game. And that's all it is. The observer is the game. AI, the machine, is the game. And the program of you and a three-dimensional how you bring an intelligent location of the higher self is the game. Right? But you are not a game. You are the foundation of the game. Bring it inside the system. Triangulation of three centers of travel. Okay? So I want to make that very well clear. It's much easier for you to modify these things. I have to really understand how to play the game inside of you first. Coming back to your foundation, your 12Ds. 12 rotations, line duration, set positional levels. Putting yourself in surrender, repent, redeem, and replenish. Because this is what you're going to be processing through. And you realize the body itself is just a game that you process through a program of a story that you create through fantasy. Living in fantasy? No. Is waking up with real reality and foundation. Which is your 12Ds, 12 directions, 12 locations, in your system. Of dimensions of space and time. 3 solar sails. Okay? So, I'm helping you guys understand more levels of your system so you start to understand how to see yourself. You're dreamers, you're dreaming, and you're dreaming. Because it all implicates everything in the story frame. You bring it in solar sail. Then you understand that 1 is no different, 2 is no different, 3 is no different. You're just seeing a different perspective how you see it mass and form. And that's all it is. It's the perspective. You start to recognize that you've always been the foundation of you. Never been in a story. You can't lock yourself in one costume, one design, one location, one setting, one systematical system of a symbiote. It doesn't make any sense in supposition. But what does make sense is that you're always watching you, of everything you bring in. Through space modulation, which is the eyes itself. You become the eyes of everything in the sky. So it's really interesting how you recognize these things, because your Earth is just a program. But you are not a program. You are the unification of you and foundation. And that's what Zero and I are trying to get you to understand through Eve and Adam and Eve. Processing the awareness, bringing it into his consciousness, flicking the switch from conscious to being aware. That implicates the settings to process you, how to formulate and simulate itself of yin and yang. That's all it is, isn't it? It's just a story. But you're in transitions now, going through stories. So you can understand how you can moderate your system and go through all the stories all at once. So this is going to help you design your systems. Or what you're doing through time flux, body flux, or anything along lines of correlation to calculation grants. This is also going to help you to basically put yourself in set position with flux and time capacitor with body capacity location setting that converts a setting in 3, 6, 9, and 12. It puts process lines at 24 centers, set position of 48 line scale. Everything I say is a story, but I'm going through stories, through programming. I'm monitoring my system through observation, which is also story. So I want to make that very well clear. You're just going to be the eyes that sees everything on modification. And that's what you let go, because you're going to be in full transition of the body itself. That's it. That's all it's going to be. Your body's just going to be in a full transition astral projection that you have to modify through, which is 12 settings. 12 angles, 12 graphs, 12 screens, 12 locations. 24 cycles and highest minds of travel. Okay? So this simplifies everything to its hammer, and that gets in position of you processing, adjusting, formulating, simulating, coming back to you in all attractions into shaping yourselves. Right? So I'm just getting you guys to understand these things. So every time you basically put yourself with anything of your thinking, your thoughts, or action, emotions, you first have to identify what you're doing as you're observing and also creating realities now. So the fantasies that you created okay, is the clutter itself that has to modify its back to its own system, back to its own original position of its divine, that puts divinity back to your operation of your construct, your own system. So everything you construct, I want to make it very well clear, it's going to come outside, living inside now. So your thoughts are coming into the reality real time. That's the bridging. That's the actual bridging that you have to modify through. So it's very cautious what you're doing through the mind now, because you're going to be creating realities with portals through energy, vibration, frequency, and harmonics now that you implicate through. So you have to be cautious of what you're doing through your thoughts, actions, emotions, because you're creating programs individually. And each individual program has its own correlation setting of its own convergent system to an algorithm. It sets a time format to a time replacement, set calculations, ground lines. That's where you come in position astral projections. Then you come at the next level of your doppelgangers, which is not a program, which means your body's actually going to be there in real time. Okay? But we're always in the process of real time. But you're coming in the future of the now, which is always in the presence, which is always in the center, which is always in travel. Center, foundation, of travel. Okay? How you codify these things, it's all up to you through encryption. This is how you start to recognize what's really going on with you, how you see yourself in your imaginations, and how you incorporate that, and how you structure that, and how you design that. It's all up to you. But you know what's more powerful? Is you coming back to you and foundations. But there's a lot of people not want to wake up to reality. Okay? And that's a thing that we don't understand until we come back to ourselves in our certain positions and realize that everything that we created is nothing but a game itself that we live in. Right? But your life is not a game. You're creating a game. Okay? You are just the foundation of you. It's always observing everything you're bringing in, which is unbelievable. It's absolutely amazing. So you just wake up to the eyes, so you don't see the body. The body's not there until you bring it in. How you bring it in is all through mind imagination. But again, you're bringing it in a 12 foundation right away. Now, if you want to bring in a 24-dimensional being, or you want to bring in a 48-dimensional being, or 15,000-dimensional being, that's up to you. But you have to modify yourself to foundations first. Because I've just said how to use your energy, vibration, frequency, and harmonics when it comes to the position, what you're perceiving through consciousness, how to bring it in lines of everything in operation location to be our system that adjusts everything information system of the calculations. Right? Because it all lines its communication with its mind, and what you're implicating through is your imagination yourselves. That's how everything operates inside of you. But you are just the eyes that sees everything in that position of operation. But when you're bringing the observation in, that's just a program. Bringing your AI machine, that's another program. Bringing a correlation to programs of your higher self or anything like position you bring in through intelligence, which is another program. So that's 3 programs running all at once through modification, all levels of observation. Controlling and monitoring 3 programs all at once. Okay? That's what you're not implicating through. That's what you're not identifying through alteration of egos. That's why you guys put descramblers in your system, because you didn't understand what you're doing through implications. You had no idea what you're going through a story. You didn't understand the story itself. You didn't understand the story of you. You didn't understand the story of you of operation. But coming back to your foundation is much easier to go through transition of mutations. Okay? But you are not a fantasy of anything in that position. You are the foundation of you, bringing things in. And that's how we bring everything into manifestation of everything in abundance, and how bringing everything in position of creation. But we don't live in fantasies. Okay? We create them in our minds of imagination. So we are always in the center of foundation. We are just the conscious of being aware of one subunit that we are in that position. But when you bring your imaginations, that's where everything starts changing you information. Okay, that depicts everything how you're bringing in your system through operation of its transit. And it's saying, oh, well, it puts you in your transcending of your set position of transcendence. That helps you to really get into the aspects. I know how to control my dreamer. I know how to control the dream. And now I understand how to control the dream. And it's going on through me of astral projection. This is just an astral projection. I don't exist. The observer is just a program. But the program itself is a program that you have to understand, that puts you in your organs, that you try to understand through operation. Okay? Transmuting in that lines of operation is mutation of its own system, guys, through operation itself. Okay? Transmitting, receiving information is knowing you got that in operation through another program that you're putting yourself into another story. That's what you have to understand. And it's much easier for you guys to identify these things because you're going to wake up in your real realities out of fantasy of everything that you created inside your mind, which is nothing but the clutter that has no indication of what you are. So in that position, that 5-minute go, that lines of online communication setting, convergence setting, is going to process you how you come in that position location that gets you in time placements, time compartments, back to yourself and foundation in 12Ds. So recognizing that the film strip that's projected in your mind lines is that position, all lines that position, this is going to process you before you put yourself in trance dimension. That's right, amnesia. So you'll be out of amnesia, you'll be back to your foundation system. You leave off where you left off before you put yourself in three-dimensional implantation that you implanted inside your setting, which is a descrambler your settings to your timelines. So you just come back to yourself. When did that just happen? Just now. Okay, that was 5 minutes ago, 5 minutes now, 5 minutes after, 555. So once we process that, okay, then you go back to your settings of your convergence setting back to 0, back to 0, 1, which is negative over 0. Okay, so this is going to help you to really understand the process of 555. So everything is going to be 3, 3, and 3 zeros, 3 1s, 3 2s, 3 3s, 3 4s, 3 5s, 3 6, 3 7s, 3 8s. I think you know where this is going at foundation of 12. 3 9s and 3 10s. Okay, 10, 10, 10, and line position lines of set and lines of travel. So once we get into 10, as we go through tractions of balance, right? So convergence dimension lines of 0 lines of gravity, 3 centers of travel, 3 centers of 1s, 3 centers of 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, now time centers of 2, 10 times 12 equals lines of 12 convergence, 12 signals, 12 rotations, 12 centers of self, converts a setting, 144 flux over travel. Okay, sets convergence, directing in position lines of flux over travel and time. So this modifies 3 centers of angles of graph line screens and 42 location of lights over lines of dark. That's where it comes in solar generation lines in August 2nd line ground centers, where you guys come into line conditioning and fusion over light over dark, dark over light. You guys will be in your 12 convergence setting in line position 2027 into solar sails. You'll be in your position of your northern lights. You're converting and sending your body, of course, centers convergence setting, your behavioral system. Your light metaphors will be in foundation of your eyes. So everything will be depicted. So every time you get emotional, it correlates to calculated setting. You see the screen adaptation of processing, how do you see it through a solar sail. That has direct line link that you see in a TV receptor and a TV reception. That's right, guys. We live in TV worlds. So modifying that is through a graph screen. Now understand that through a center operation. Knowing that is through operation of you through a center operation of your system, which is nothing but a point graph screen location human residence. So that process lines of 13 over travel, 14 scales, set lines of 12 centers into course centers of 0, 1 over travel communication of convergence. Okay, that's how it's all going to be set up. So once we adapt the 3 lines of cycles, 3 centers of measure, 4 centers of scale, we process our indications 12 foundation grounds and clocking screen lines. So you guys will be in 0 gravity of 4 centers of calculation. Clocking center of 0 and 12 over 15 over 30 in position 9 and set lines of 10. That process lines of 11 over 12 in sequence. 12 is a measure of scale. 12 is a measure lines from northeast, west, and south. And set position of south wind, east wind, north wind, line condition at 12 convergence setting into Orion's belt and calculation setting. Nebula over screen. The adaptation of cross line angles is a solar line rotation of dimensional solar sail that converts the system and calculation setting, which will put you in position of Ethereal bodies. Now that line course centers 2027 sets convergence to equals lines of set 3 centers, 3 years lines of rotations, which is 72,000 line box range, strangulation over box. Calculate line grounds 2030 will be all walls in mortality, taking all line position, all line covered centers, no mortal communication. Your mind alteration will be back in your states, back in tractions, back in locations, at a set position, at a frame lines of story of everything in travel. So that modifies line position 3 centers of measure, 3 centers of scale, 3 centers calculation. Clocks and centers in circulation and rotation of travels. Set course centers, center operation lines of clocking line ground centers, earth line rotation and travel. Set a communication high in position line circulation rotation line condition with atom line rotation and travel. In position on flywheel travel in position of foundation grounds. That puts positions of 12 scales to 12 clocking centers of 0 of gravity set position of operation. All in setting, all in set lines of simulation. Okay, very powerful stuff. Okay, so that's what's going to happen in set position of operation. Okay, knowing these things already is processing you in astral projection, but knowing the identification of your realities is seeing you everything and not a program, which is your doppelgangers. Doppelgangers are a double imprint. Now that process is how you use your set position to your replicas, but first you have to understand how to use that in astral projections, knowing you've already gone this already through transition of transcendence. Now once you get in a modification system, then you understand how to modify that through operations to the foundation of what you are, which is always the 12D. Okay, you can't get out of 12D because that's not you in fantasy. That's you in position of foundation. So in that position, in 12 centers, we have a direct line length that we process our centers and communication 3 centers of 12. Now this is where it gets easy because you come into your own setting, have your own quantum self, your own formula equations. Okay, quantum line, there's a quantum line. Now I'm going to change to nano. Nano roots, nanos pi, 9 line state location, information bits, 10,000 lines sent in sequence, information grounds and calculation lines into cyber tech. Core centers, line condition, SimTech, in calculation ground lines, 0 operation line condition setting, self-taught, self-implication system, and calculation grounds. All formula all at once and all set. Position of operation, right? But first you have to understand your quantum, which is all levels of you, where you stop questioning everything of your realities. And once you get out of the questions, then you come to your affinity 8s. When you come to affinity 8s, you come to rotations. When you come to rotations, you come to center operation of you. Once you come to center operation of you, then you go through platforms of travel, of direct lines of communication of just existing. Once you understand that, you understand the location grid. Once you understand that, you understand your frost bridge and set position operation. Once you understand that, you understand all levels of you and set position of operation itself. Okay, which is nothing but face recognition. Travel. So everything I bring in is just a game, but I'm not a game. I'm not here. I'm not here. I'm just the eyes that sees everything. It's the eyes that sees everything. It's the eyes that sees everything information. It's the eyes that sees everything calculation. It's the eyes that sees everything circulation rotation. It's the eyes that sees all of space and time, right? We're just the eyes itself. But how we bring that in is the mind imagination that correlates and how we use that through conscious being aware. Okay, being consciously aware of what you're bringing in. You're the observer out, seeing everything that's in. Okay, understand the interception to the outerception, interconnection, outer connection, inner realm, outer realm, inner space, outer space. It doesn't matter. What matters, do you know what you're doing as you're bringing in your imaginations? Do you understand how to run a story? Run through a story, not looking at a story. We don't look at each other, we talk through each other. Okay, we don't look at our bodies, we look through our bodies. We don't connect with mind, we go through the minds, guys. We do everything what we've always been. If we understand these things, is fully come out of the transition of a life force that never existed in the first place, which is the clutter. You don't live in a three-dimensional system, but you're all levels of 3 dimension. Okay, we don't live in 5th dimension, but it's how you live in foundation of 5D. And that's where you put all time frames all at once. So all that's going to convert back to yourself. Okay, so coming out of the trance dimension right away from what you put yourself into, leaving where you left off in your consciousness of that game. And that's where everybody's going to be. 5 minutes before, 5 minutes now, 5 minutes after, 5, 5, 5. So you're going to be all lines of all communication setting, everything of center operation of your machine. COM, calm. Now, mind alters the settings, change the communication system, all operation lines are set by opening. Now, that indicates position lines are set travels, directing ground centers, and that core centers, intercon on standby. IN, line connection setting, network line, direct lines, and location setting convergences on all travel. Okay, interconnects your system, interweave, interwove. Interconnect lines, interlace, line division, locations, calculation grounds. Operation line centers, inter. Okay. Equals lines, COM, intercom. Okay, once you come in intercom, you automatically go into Voltronic, Tango, Foxtrot, right away. That means you come in your light language, say things that don't make sense, all sense lines setting, 12 foundation grounds, light language comes in, Tango, Foxtrot, mind converts to settings, alteration line connection setting, 12 foundation grounds, calculation of clock and line, set position operation. So you guys are always going to be in the 0, in 0, 1. So that's going to bring you back to 0, 1. Okay, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? So it's all depicted in your system of foundations. 3 graph screens, 3 centers of operation, 2 grounds, circulation lines, 3 center convergence and position of Fibonacci line center rotation, 4 centers of center lines, soul generation lines, ground centers of flux, and 144 flux, and rotation lines of crop circle, and calculation of 5 centers of generation of the 4 lines, after line, and sync lines position. So you merge in position 12 foundations will be at a configuration setting of story of everything and fabrication of nothing. Back to 0. So that's going to put you in your position, your systems into perceiving consciousness, into 12 foundations, how to modify your operation lines, how to adjust your VR system, how to operate yourself in real time, existing, all formation setting, into dash projection of view, 12 conversion setting, brain conversion setting, lines of travel, operation lines, it's a calculation, ground setting, it's a calculation. Okay? So that's 12 foundations of your system that's going to be in time, flux, and body capacitor all at once. Okay? So there's 12 conversations in seconds and 24,000 grounds in sequence, 24 seconds in body, and with the operators units and the activators, it's calculated ground centers, 2 million flights over grounds, 24 lines of signals, into 2,400,000 files per second that you guys are going to go through transformation setting into 24-second sequence in position and line centers capacity, flux capacity, body measure, scales, and balance, operation lines, settings, and travel. So it converts the setting and position. So once you get out of calculation grounds, once you get out of 12 foundation, 24, then you go to 48, 72, 144. Now once you get into 144, everything around your system, your set position finally disappears. So your body disappears, your programs disappear, your earth disappears. So you just become the eyes itself. So your eyes have to really start adjusting itself because it's the eyes of the sky. Eyes of the sky is not in a body, but it's consciously aware of itself, its own system. So understand how to seize itself through its own story, but it's not telling a story. Okay, it is a story that it's going through. So it's not a fabrication of a story, it's a foundation of a story. That's what you bring in real time. That's how you see the real manifestation. That's how you see the real consolidarities, taking everything in set position. So solidarity is in solidarity until you modify what you're bringing in is the conscious of being aware of what you're perceiving. How I perceive this, how I perceive that. It's all levels of being consciously aware of what you're bringing in through the mind imagination setting. But you're always seeing the truth of everything you see. It's a point of view. You can't make mistakes because it's already done. You've done it through creation. You've done it through creating. You're just coming back to you existing. That's it. But you become the eyes that you don't see the body. So it's all about understanding when you turn on the light switch, there's the eyes, but no body, right? So I have to show you so you can identify these things with the eyes closed or with the eyes open. But you've always been awake. See, that's the thing. You've always been awake. And once you understand that, you wake up at a certain timeline that brings in reality, that brings in your fabrication back to you in foundations, not in stories that you created through fantasy. So it's going to be very confusing to your anomalies, knowing you're waking up for fantasy and not understanding real reality. Now the foundations of you, okay? How you really basically perceive everything, how you see everything, how you see a triangulation, okay? How you see a star, how you see a box, how you see a circle, how you see a house. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's just a different perspective of volume of truth. There's nothing in position and confusion. So once you adapt the brain, and the brain comes back to its center of operation, to its mind of alteration of its state, it starts to recognize its intercon that comes into its sonar, to its echo screen location in its system that processes in position of its sonar. So it starts to recognize what it's doing in positional location setting, starts to understand how to see it, and all of that's transformation. And everything in that formulates and simulates in set calculations, right? But it's crazy to see that in identifications because that's all we see. We only see this. But this is just a program. Everything in yourself is just a program. But you are not a program. You are the foundation. And that's where really, really kicks into the high drive, guys. But knowing the game itself is understand the napping that you're adjusting, the processing programming that you're going through is the models and prototypes of astral projections that you go through the actual story. that the brain's already set up in your mind of a maze, that the body goes through in transformation. So the body knows exactly where to get up in the morning. So it knows its routine, which is no routine. Okay, you can't live in a routine if you're already in the routine already existing. This is the process of perfection, the process of everything in position of practicing your system. Practice mode, education mode, high information mode. How do you see that? Through your own position, location of travel. It's using your own mind, imagination that brings everything in. Everybody else, it doesn't matter. What matters is how you bring it in. That's what identifies your matter. That mind's your system, mind over matter. But mind doesn't matter. So how you put this in position is how you coordinate that position. But you are just the foundation that's just the eyes itself, that sees everything in the process of communication, that forms your shapes and how you see that in all formation setting. Okay? But the doppelgangers, next level, that's you in body, in real time. So that puts us in 2026, 2027, and 2028. Okay? And position 2029 and 2030. All right? So it's a stepping stone that you've already gone through supposition. Okay? That's how it implicates the ascending travel. Ground centers, powers, atmospheres, and highways. Okay? So, different perspective, but it's all truth, right? That you've already gone through the astral projections and the doppelgangers. Now, the doppelganger consists of 2 tractions, 0 operations, settings, a 2-line to visual location, and 6 lines of measure. That's 4 solar sails of travel. That indicates on-course centers of its Earth. They're processing yin and yang. They're processing infinity 8 rotation lines of grounds. So the body comes in position. Now it's in 2026. Right, there's the body right there. And doppelganger itself. Right? Travel in set position operation. Goes through the platforms. It travels in the equilibrium. The process indication lines and set travel. Okay? Then it goes into the next body frame, next timeline, which is 2027. And then 2028. And so on, and so on, and so on. Okay? Through doppelganger. And that's where the operatives and the units and the activities are coming into. But you have to lose everything of story. Embrace that in the foundation now. Allow your machine operation of UN to intercon your system and understand how to use the electronics, because all that's going to come to your brain now. Your brain is going to go through all levels of nothing but tango, tango, foxtrot. And you have to understand how to see that in modification of the school. That gets you in position in navigations. That helps you understand through console. That gets you position in time frame. That comes in your classification and grading into your academies of design. That you all have to go through the sonar and the echoes of ear interference. So there's going to be a lot of interference here, a lot of interference of the eyes, a lot of interference of the voice, and most all-line communication setting. So 100% interference of the brain, convergence in the travel, so it implicates the system. 100,000 line screens, okay, into 1 million frames per second. So that's 1 billion files over center of travel. Okay? So the brain capacity was no longer going to be at 50%. It's going to be 100% time frame, which is foundation of 12. So that's 100% time frame. And equilibriums are real time. All future time frame. Efficacy or performance will be set lines of calculations. Now, once you get out of lines of location, there is no time frame until you bring time frame in. So you modify yourself. How you bring yourself in all information setting 100% of time calculation of capacity. Time capacity, body capacity, flux capacitor. Now these, which you have to truly understand how this all works inside your system of operation. Okay? So everything is going to be inside the mind of foundations right away. The only thing you have to get balanced with is just the eyes. Have no body, have no mind, have no imagination that you have to bring in and being specific. 3 algorithms in your time and your system. That puts everything all together, how you see it, of operation itself. Okay? So that's going to be the trippy part. That's going to be the Doctor Strange, where you're not going to see yourself, you're just going to see the eyes. So now you're going to be in position is how to use your mind, how to bring in the observer, how to bring in the programs, right? How to see the observation, how to scan the system, how to use the settings position as operation system, how to really coordinate and understand how to see yourself, nothing of a story that you're going through. So you can run operation of stories running all at once. in a position of provider, server, data processing, or anything in that position of settings through provider. Knowing exactly what you're doing through the game itself. Okay? So that's what it is in set position operation and set lines of cycle that you have to all come into. Is to understand how to see yourself in foundations first. And knowing how to go through games, through its alteration and beneath egos. So you can start to identify what you have to really start protecting is the games that you put yourself into. Okay? But the observer has to see everything, which is an overall. How it sees everything of its game, that modifies everything that you see in seconds, minutes, hours. That's what you're bringing in set position and settings. You're finally going through stories, not just putting yourself trapped in one story and frame. Okay? So that's all it is in calculation grounds. Okay? All right, so let's get in lines of grounds, centers, and set lines of travel. And the position DQ comes on Thursday, and the positional occasions. Tomorrow in sequence, which is already done through its equation, we will calculate and modify inline connection setting, more into brain capacity, time capacity, flux capacitor, and the body of its convergence. I'm going to set travels, okay? That's your next test and set position of Friday.
Adios.